Hi you guys, it's your girl Jocelyn with another word. In today's word, we will be discussing ulterior motives, and I will be bringing awareness on the ulterior motive and what I've discovered within the actions that I've encountered with these people who wrongfully brought these challenges and battles upon me. And I will be revealing my knowledge and wisdom of the clarity that I've gained of the situation by analyzing these people by the soul of themselves rather than the appearance, which I stress a lot in a lot of my videos. If you guys are new, thank you for supporting my channel. Please feel free to catch up on my latest videos of all the things that I've battled and challenged. And for those who just been supporting my channel since day one, thank you. Please make sure you subscribe. But right now, I want to bring awareness on the things that we have to be careful with when, just perceiving people in our family and just being told, oh, we're family, you have to forgive this person, whether it's your parent, your sibling, your close one, your friend, whoever the case may be, any of your loved ones. Many of us have fallen outs with them, and then we are told, oh, we family, or we've been friends too long, we got history, or we've been in a relationship too long to end this. And you know that this person is not a good person of intentions and a person of abuse and traumas and just not a rightful person. And we choose to ignore these behaviors because 9 times out of 10 our minds are playing tricks on us from the appearance of the person instead of us following our hearts and discernments to know that these people are not right for us. So I will be discussing what I've discovered while being in hermit mode, which is isolation, within my family and this sibling that went against me with law enforcement, just like Joseph in the magical spiritual book of Christianity known as the Holy Bible in today's world. First, I will be explaining the full story about, like I said, the law enforcement and sibling, and then I will be moving on to the people in the higher authorities who I trusted within our home property business that led me to a bigger destruction this year after being drugged by a cop. So it's just a lot that I've battled, and I just want to make sure I'm bringing the full stories out to make sure that I'm passing back the knowledge and wisdom in case others is going through the same things, and to just be careful on what to look out for. As many of you know, I was led to believe that my oldest sibling had in fact worked against me with law enforcement to silence me as a spiritual shaman and an activist for the state of Ohio. And that led to a big distraction of an hour-long drive from law enforcement, from 2 officers coming up to my car without any video cam, blocking my car in, and I was never pulled over. So I was not understanding, and this all happened in the same month of me being drugged by a police officer from my former community and city that I'm from, who had become a current cop in my new community that claimed to see me in traffic, asked me on a date. The date did not end well at all. My coat ended up getting lost. He ended up writing RIP to my coat. There were certain parts of the night that I just could not remember at all, and wondering why was my clothes everywhere, and I just didn't have a better understanding of things. So, I turned a full statement in to the detective, who has yet called me, will not answer my calls, refuses to see me in person, and will not respond back to my text messages because they never had a case like this before, which was told to me, and they really don't know what to do about it, which they are trying to sweep it under the rug so it do not have any awareness brought to these matters that has been just swept under the rug for many years because they don't want to bring this kind of attention to those behind our law systems, and they should. Instead, they are defending those behind the law systems who are not rightfully leading in their authority, because the people who are defending them are the ones who are also playing foul and dirty games as well. Before I get there, I want to bring more awareness to this sibling. I want to bring full awareness because after this whole situation went on, which led me to an hour-long chase with the police, I had my seatbelt on. I drove the speed limit. I just refused to stop out the protection of my life from being hounded for no reason when I was never pulled over. And like I said, with later finding out, both of the officers did not have any video cam on, which is very strange to me. But to move on, the police had busted out my window, and because the police busted out my window, it caused mold in my car when it was in tow, and it ruined my whole car that they are not being held responsible for because he had a choice not to bust out my window, especially when my driver window was already halfway down and there was an officer at both windows, the passenger and the driver. It left me to wonder, well, why would you break my passenger window when there's a cop right here at my driver window and my window is down and my hands is on the steering wheel? It's because they feel that they can abuse their authority. After being arrested that night, my family trying to get me medicated for this sibling refusing to leave my home, with later coming back to my home, refusing to leave again, blocking my car in the driveway, calling law enforcement on me to get me pulled over, which in fact, like I've mentioned, I was never pulled over. I just chose to drive off away from the officer who never pulled me over, which led to a night of destruction from this sibling's behavior and his ill intentions, and I still am not understanding why he would do this. But then it hit me, okay, it was Judgment Day. I put a lot of airing out of the traumas and abuse that I dealt with the family. They did not like that at all and sent this sibling to my home who they know makes me very well uncomfortable. A sibling who never liked me as a child would just cock me in my neck and make me cry, frog me in my arm to make me cry, make me sleep on a furry dog couch, tell me to shut up, get out his room, look down on me as a teenager for being, a mother at a teenage, and also definitely looking down on me for having a lot of children, but he ended up having the same amount of children as me in the long run as a karmic lesson. But the sibling went on to just being more and more damaging to me for no reason, and I don't even hang around this sibling, affiliate with this sibling, so I don't understand why he felt the need he could come to my home uninvitedly without my permission and just cause this big destruction on me. Like I said, after this sibling violated my peace with coming to my house uninvitedly and just refusing to leave or blocking my car in, and as I guessed, about 7 minutes he stayed here as I beat on my door, flickered my lights, tapped my window, yelled out for him to leave. He refused. He then sits in his car with blocking my car in the driveway on his cell phone, which led me to believe that he was giving law enforcement my license plate, tag number, and information before he left, and went to go get my mother in another city with bringing her back and blocking my car in my driveway again and provoking me, just violating my privacy and getting me out of my hookup, and then labeling me as having a mental illness. Like I said, the ill intentions that he brought on to me from his destructive behaviors of refusing to leave my home and provoking me, and after provoking me, painting me to have a mental illness when things went farther than what he expected and end up in a big rut of destruction, which, like I said, led the police to twist my handcuffs and throw me in jail that night. And that night that I was thrown in jail, I had given my cell phone and my wallet to my youngest daughter, who was with me, and told her to hold on to it, which my parent and the sibling knew that I had court the next morning, and neither one of them brought my cell phone nor my wallet as a force of me to ride home with this sibling. After the sibling and my mother left court, I end up calling my cell phone, and my mother answers it, and I asked her, why are you answering my phone, and why wouldn't you leave it for me at court with my wallet so I can get home? And she's like, oh, this sibling can pick you up. And I said, no, why would I want to ride home with this sibling when all of this is his fault? And I'm not going to ride home with him. And I refused. That whole day was sitting at the Justice Center the whole day to staff, kind of just pleaded for me to ride home with the sibling because they were concerned for me just being left there all day and not having a place to go when they close, or not having a phone to use to get home, which kind of was a force for me to ride home with this sibling. And this is where God had revealed my business. And when his sibling picked me up, he trying to act all cool, like, do you want something to eat? And like I said, I had been fasting for 3 days working on my biggest project, which was life in poverty, sibling wars, those of suffering on the streets. If you guys want to go back and look at my past videos, that was one of my biggest assignments, explaining my spiritual calling as a shaman and as a psychic, and just learning all my inner abilities and gifts within myself, and of different spiritual deaths, transformations, awakenings, and rebirths that I've experienced, if you guys want to check it out. And because he had claimed that he had drove to my home to find my wallet, that he didn't know it was at my mother's, and end up driving back to her city and coming back to the Justice Center to get me. That was a lot of driving, so I try to be considerate. So, the siblings picked me up and he went to drop me off at home, but I was just scared to stay home from all the trauma that had just happened to me a day before. So I tell him, let me go in my home and give me some clothes to pack, and that he could drop me off at my mother's house. But since he only lived about 6 minutes away, I told him we could rest up at his house because I was so tired and drained. I had not slept. I had not ate. I barely drank when I was fasting. And I just really needed rest after, just that long day. And so he offered for me to take a nap at his home. But before we got to his home, he like, hey, you haven't eaten. Maybe you should eat something. I'm like, you right. So he stopped at Wendy's. I ordered me a French fry because I don't eat meat, and a medium lemonade, pink lemonade. And we went to his home. And, I told him I needed some rest because I was really drained and tired from fasting and what he had done to me, leading me on that hour-long chase and being thrown in jail. And I just really needed rest because I had not rested, like I said, due to the projects. So due to the projects that I was working on. So I had eaten a fry and I had set the pink lemonade next to me, and I laid on his couch and went to sleep for a little while. And then out of nowhere, I end up just jumping up out of my sleep. And when I did, I had faced him. He was in the kitchen. I was in the living room, and the kitchen is like really connected to the living room. So I tell him, you know, I had just learned a survival technique, and he's really treating me like I've had a mental illness. Like, I think he practiced this in his head of how it was going to go, where he really started to become delusional to think that I really had a mental illness. But I was warning him, hey, I learned a survival technique and I will use it on you, because I did not trust him before I went to sleep. And I know he keep a lot of guns in his house, so I really was not comfortable with going to sleep. But because I was just so tired after fasting, not going to sleep, working on my project for 3 days, and the destruction he caused on me, going to jail and just going through a lot that night, I needed the sleep and I needed the rest, and my body couldn't take anymore, which led me to just take a nap on his couch. And out of nowhere, I just immediately jump up out of my sleep out of nowhere, and this sibling is standing over me. So I jump up off the couch immediately, and I look at him like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, I was just going to see if you want to sleep in my bed. And I was like, no, thank you. Like, why would I want to sleep in your bed? And he was like, come get in my bed. And I was like, no, thank you. And he's kind of guiding me to his room. And when I look at his bed, he done had the covers flipped back and everything. And I'm just thinking in my head, why would I sleep in your bed? And there's no telling who's been in that bed. So, you know, my intuition is going crazy. I'm getting all these crazy alerts on the inside of me, like something is not right. Get away from him. And it forced me to rush over by his apartment door to leave out, where he was right behind me and following me when I told him, no, thank you. I didn't want to sleep in his bed. And so we're right here by the door of his apartment door, which is about a half a foot away from where we were standing. And I noticed that he had 2 earbuds in his ear and they were lit up. And he had made a comment stating, okay, I'ma call you back. And so I said, who are you talking to? And he said, oh, nobody, my TV. Who talks to their TV and tell their TV they're going to call them back? I then rushed to the door and opened the door and ran in a hall. So as I'm standing in front of him, and he really think I'm supposed to believe that he is telling the TV that he will call the TV back, I then look at the door and rush to the door and open the door. We're going in a hallway for about a few minutes just to breathe, and I went back into the apartment with leaving the apartment door open and hurry up and putting on my shoes, which was by the door, and grabbing my pink lemonade by the couch and my bag of clothes that I had from when I took a shower at his home, because he invited me to take a shower at his home as well before I took a nap. So I grabbed my stuff with the door open, and I told him I would meet him by the car. But it was weird to me because by the time I made it to the car, I didn't know how long I had been asleep. And I promise you, I cannot make this up. When I grabbed my stuff and went to the car, I could not figure out day from night because I had been asleep and I did not know for how long, and the sun had not came down, but the sun was not also up either, so I couldn't tell if it was morning or before dark. And I just didn't even care at that point. So when he came outside and we end up leaving, he was like, "You sure you ready to go?" I'm like, "I'm sure, I'm afraid at this point, and I'm just praying." So we drive, we get to a red light, and I noticed the bus next to me have a license plate that says 364. And it reminded me of 365 days. This was the day that I did not feel so. So it kind of was like a synchronicity to me that I kept to myself. But to move on, I drank the pink lemonade because I didn't trust drinking anything out of his home, and I didn't want him, to stop past any stores. I just wanted to go straight to my mother's house with my children, because at this point I couldn't trust her or him, and I was just ready to just be with my children, hug on my children, and just make sure they was protected and safe. So my body, like I said, was very dehydrated from fasting, and I had to trust to drink the pink lemonade, where I then by the time I went to my mother's, had had passed elimination. I had began to get sick, and so once I get to my mother, she then smiled at me the next day and says that I cannot be around my children without supervision. And, just to kind of get under my skin. And I'm upset. I'm like, I don't care what nobody say. I'm going to be around my children when I want. And she was like, I know, but you can't be around them without supervision. I guess just, to silence me from my YouTube video, from putting my project out that I still had not put out at the time, because they did this to distract me from putting it out and to be scared of them in a law enforcement. But to move on, I tell her, I really don't care. And she ended up having this sibling to babysit me the next day with my children while she went to a church play. And he is offering me a drink from Sonic's that I end up declining, because I did not trust him and I did not want anything from him, especially after starting to get ill. And after a few days, I really started becoming thinner and thinner. It was hard for me to eat. I started losing a lot of weight, becoming really, really thin and weak, where I had texted my mother and asked her, could she bring me some orange juice and a whole lot of vegetable broth so I can nurture myself back to proper healing, because my body just was not coping right, and I was becoming ill more and more, and my face was even starting to sink in. So I would drink a lot of water and a lot of orange juice, and try to drink as much broth, listen to music, dance in my mother's backyard, stretch and exercise to get my body back in proper alignment, and just to be able to hold food within myself, because I couldn't hold solid food. So I had to drink a lot of I had to just drink a lot of fluids to heal myself, to be able to hold just a little bit of food within myself, like noodles and things like that. After a few days go by, the sibling's oldest son come over, and I tell him about my YouTube videos, and he was like, he's expressing to me that he was not talking to his mother or his siblings at the time on his mother's side. And I was telling him that his sibling was actually a good child, and that he expressed to me that he wanted better for himself, but there's not nothing for them to do, and he was like, he said that to you. And I was like, yeah, he really want to be a good kid. So, the sibling's oldest son had went on to say, It's like, I peep your videos, I be tuned in, I understand, and that's why I sit silent and watch people and observe people. He was like, as a matter of fact, I'm so sneaky, you wouldn't even know that I was in the room. So I was not understanding why he said that. And I was like, okay, I was just at your father's house the other day. And he was like, I know. I was there too. When I dropped my keys, you jumped up out your sleep. I was in the room the whole time, which led me to believe that his father was on the phone with him telling his son that he would call him back, because whatever they were doing standing over me when I jumped up from the sound of his keys. And I wonder what they were doing to me. So I get very much uncomfortable and really not trust my mother or this sibling. And so I stayed at her home for about a week, and then I was ready to go home. The reason why I stayed so long because I was scared to allow my children to be there with her unattended without me. But I knew that was their plan, was to keep me there, to silence me, because every time I tried to get my project out and to edit it, my mother would distract me and be like, you don't want to bring up other people's traumas, and you don't want to, leak this video out and people be upset. Like, she just didn't want the family, secrets to get out. And I had to tell her, this is my job, it's not to hurt people's feelings. So, my project was made on April 25th, and this incident happened the 27th. A week has passed. My project is still not out, and I see my mother is trying to distract me from getting it out. So I had to start trusting, to walk by faith and not by sight, and to just trust that, my children were going to be okay in the hands of, my parent and this sibling, and that, children's service was involved in case something happened. So, I was just a wreck for what they did to me, but I also had to go home and properly heal and work on myself and get my projects out. And I was wondering, why would this sibling do this to me? And, the more I've been reflecting and letting things out in my video content on this situation, the more I've began to go into hermit mode, which is isolation, sit with myself and reflect on these actions. I then still, tell the divine, I don't understand why this sibling tried to poison me. What did I do to this sibling for him to want to kill me? What did I do? I understand law enforcement, the things I've battled. They don't like my YouTube, and they sent their officers to me to silence me. But why is this sibling try to poison me? And I know for a fact from the confirmation of his son, me getting really ill, and it just has not been clicking to me for all these months. And like I said, the divine will reveal things in divine timing, in perfect timing. And the more I reflected, I then go look at my live video from that night, and I've noticed that I've aired out and exposed that he was not my father's child, and I exposed that he regret having his children, his youngest, and starting over, and how I had to tell him he should be mindful for the things he says about his own children. And this is a man who I also aired that, he had gotten first cousins impregnated, and just I aired it all out, which revealed his ulterior motives of why he was trying to silence me and poison me. And like I said, he was the same sibling who hooked me up with a lawyer back in 2010, where I was falsely framed again by law enforcement under this karmic cycle. And like I said, the law enforcement had drawn guns to my head, my 1-year-old son's head, the child's father's head, with making me strip my baby's diaper and searching his bottom for drugs. And after throwing me in jail hours after being released out of the hospital without being able to heal, and miscarrying in jail without any medical assistance after being falsely arrested back in 2010. But it also brought another ulterior motive to me. After reflecting on being framed the first time in 2010 and the lawyer that this older sibling had gotten from me, like I said, he was telling me that I was facing 20 years and I wasn't even convicted of the two felony ones, a felony 2 and the F5 and the child endangerment. And he was my child's father, took the rap, told him it was his belongings, and was charged and convicted for it. And this lawyer was telling me that I was facing 20 years until this middle sibling had jumped in out of guilt. And when I say guilt, reflecting back, he was the same sibling who was present in the hotel room right before law enforcement came and busted in the room to frame me. And he, right when the sibling left, that's when law enforcement came through, busting in the room door. And this was the same sibling that did not like my child's father, because my child's father was in a secret relationship with his girlfriend at the time while he was in jail. And she was the same girlfriend that was my best friend in that present moment at the time, and secretly in a relationship with my child's father, who was also her child's godfather. So it was just a big episode of disloyalty and just Jerry Springer moments between the two of them, which my sibling hate the man to this day for what he's done with his ex-girl. He's also the same sibling that I've taken care of since childhood up to adulthood. Every time he's sick, I've nursed him back, made his doctor's appointments, made sure he got to and from places, always made sure he had a nice meal to eat, and yet he has always disrespected me and treated me like he treated his own mother. In fact, anytime he has ever went to the hospital, anything has ever happened to him, just anything in general, I am always the first person he calls before he calls his own mother. He was also the same sibling that put me in a harmful vehicle when I moved back from Tennessee and had to start over from, overcoming abuse from my children's father. And I needed a new place and a new employment, which I had found a new place. So he had let me borrow this car, knowing that the owner before him was in multiple shootouts in the car, which led me to be not only endangered, my life to be endangered, but law enforcement to also harass me until they put me in the court system and racked me up with a lot of fines, and even had my license and insurance taken from me from not being able to afford an SR22 from all the harassment that the police was putting onto me from driving the car. Same sibling who kept pressuring me to go to this party with him outside of the city where I was just sexually assaulted, in 2018. And I was telling him, no, I'm in a different part of my life. I really don't party no more. He's like, come on. So I ended up going and seeing the person who sexually assaulted me. And that night, after leaving a party, he was extremely drunk, being very rude to the staff at a restaurant. And I'm telling him he ought to be mindful of the things, of the racial slurs he was saying to them, for the safety of his food, which led to him to jump out of the car on the side of the highway with trying to physically attack me and leaving me in the midnight hours on the side of the highway at like 3-4 o'clock a.m. And it was in the middle of nowhere, where he made the mother of his child drive off, and she never came back to get me. My mother had to find me in the dark. I was hiding behind a tree, screaming and crying and panicking for my life. And this was the same night I've seen my the person who assaulted me, my aggressor. And these behaviors had carried so much where he's always tried to physically attack me. So God started to reveal that we cannot trust people by the appearance, but trust them by the soul, because many of us are walking in the valley of the shadow of death, meaning the dark soul of the night. And if we are not discerning by the soul of the person to know why we are the black sheep of the family, to bring light and love to the darkness and the shadows, which is the dark shadows of the egos, their shadow selves, that they are not willing to fix. That's why it's safe to use our discernment to perceive a person by the soul instead of the appearance of a person, because like I said, they are not willing to fix their intentions and themselves, which God always revealed things to us. And that's why it's important to know that things happen for us and not to us, for the better of us. And it don't feel good when the divine revealed these things to us, but just imagine all the plots that was brought against us behind our backs that we could not see from divine protection. So the divine will only allow us to see so much of what a person is doing by their ulterior motives, meaning the actions of a person. Like I've mentioned in my past video, I've also caught this oldest son, stalk my home one day that my mother was meeting, the program to get my son that resides in a scholar academic program during the week. So he didn't know that I lived at a dead end, and that once you go down my street, you have to turn back around, and I see everyone who goes in and out of the dead end. And that also led me to not trust my mother, because she didn't even see me in the door when she was telling him to hurry up and drive by so I wouldn't see him. And that kind of led me to unwelcome my mother from coming over my house, because then I couldn't trust her either. And I see that the family were just still stalking me even after having my children taken, and that just wasn't enough for them. They just really wanted me to be silenced and to just come up out my hookup. So, and like I said, this parent also has a control problem, and she would not quit coming over when I asked her to. And I had to have children's service ask her to quit coming over, just to break the peace and to set personal boundaries, and for people to respect my personal boundaries. Because if we don't, we see that we just allow anybody to just cause destruction onto us. But when we stand in our personal power, that's when things go right. And it was a reason why my car had got destroyed, and why, I didn't get any insurance money back. Although this destruction brought some of the biggest challenges and battles all at once for me to just embody, and it was not easy embodying these feelings, overcoming them, learning how to forgive, understand, and accept that people are going to be people. It's a reason, like I said, things happen for us and not to us. It was a reason why things didn't go right with my car insurance, and I wasn't able to get another car because after being drugged by an officer, being an activist for the state of Ohio, and a spiritual shaman, using my voice to speak up against the injustice within our law systems, communities, families, religions, it's safe for me to be in a public eye where I'm safe and these acts don't happen again to me while being behind the wheel. Also helps me with being open for help. My whole life, I've always taken care of others. I've always let others live with me. There was no time that I have ever lived alone by myself. There has been no time where the fathers have been out of jail and been there for their children while I get myself together. I've always just had to take on everyone else's burdens and things like that, and be a single mother of 6 children. So, this right here, it's just a brand new start and beginning for me. I know my children are safe, believe it or not, in the hands of my mother. I know this taught her how to not be so controlling and to not push her fears and anxieties off on me or her control issues, and to respect my boundaries. Also giving me time to properly heal, get myself together, be open up to help, something that I'm very much not open up to. I like to take care of myself. I don't like to depend on others. I don't like to ask others for help. I learned how to just depend on myself. But at some point in time, we all need help. I need help, not just everyone needs a friend. Everyone needs a person of comfort, someone they could trust. People need partnerships, mentors. So this is the divine forcing me to not be so closed in into the home and just get out here and find people who align with me and my spirit. And after reflecting and coming to the conclusion that this sibling had possibly poisoned me, I had, caught a lift to go see the detective and turn in my full statement about the situation as well. Well, I didn't want to make the video too long. I just wanted to just bring clarity to the ulterior motives that we need to look out for, with people actions and them showing us who they truly are, so we can set personal boundaries and get away from these people who are trying to drag us down and trying to hurt us to keep us in a poverty mindset. Also, I see on some videos I have 1.6K views, and I only have a little over 200 subscribers. If you guys could be nice while I give my free wisdom and knowledge to you, I ask in return that you support me back by subscribing to the channel, because it just helps to bring a bigger audience to the mental wellness community, and also help us build it up so we can make sure these videos are escalating, so we can get the help that we need and the awareness that we need for our state. Everyone else have an activist except for Ohio. So I'm putting on as a spiritual shaman, bringing awareness to those within our religion, school systems, law systems, and communities, while also representing as activists for the state of Ohio as well. And the only way to get there is if we build each other up. That's why I try so much to give back as much as I can to help those overcome. So if you guys are watching my content, can you please just make sure you hit that subscribe? Also, make sure you go hit that download on Spotify at Jocelyn's Divine Purpose, where I'm giving all great knowledge from the magical book of spiritual Christianity known as the Holy Bible, and you guys are not going to want to miss. So if there's anything I could do for you in just in the support of supporting me, please make sure to just let me know, and I try my hardest to support you. And also, if there's anything you guys feel that I should bring awareness to, don't hold back. That's what I'm here for. If you guys aren't ready to tell your stories or feel like there's certain things that need awareness as well. I love you all. Thank you, and have a great week.